In this short video, we're going to talk about earthquakes, what causes earthquakes, what are some characteristics of earthquakes, and how do we classify earthquakes. We're going to talk about the causes of earthquakes. As you know, anywhere we have plate tectonics meeting each other, we can have earthquakes. This is where the plates are stuck on each other and they build up tension and energy, which is quickly released as they finally slip past each other, causing the motions that we see in earthquakes. There are some ways that we classify earthquakes, and we do it by the type of fault that we have. Faults are defined by the shapes of the rocks and how they move according to each other. We'll talk about the different types and how we can identify them to help us learn more about the earthquakes. We have three different types of faults. We have normal, reverse, and slip strike faults. We'll talk about the different characteristics of each type and how we can identify them. We use what we call the footwall and the hanging wall to identify these. Here we have a picture of a fault. We've got the footwall and the hanging wall. The footwall looks like a foot or a shoe, which gives us an idea of its certain shape. The hanging wall is the one that's opposite. So depending on the motion of these two things, we can tell which is the footwall and the hanging wall and the type of fault we have. The footwall can also be seen as the one that we could walk up if we were hiking. So here we have a normal fault, which has the footwall again on the right, which we can identify, and the hanging wall on the left. In a normal fault, the hanging wall falls and the footwall is rising. Here we have a reverse fault, and as you can guess, is just the opposite, with the hanging wall rises and the footwall falling. We have a slip strike fault, which is like the San Andreas fault. This is a vertical fault. There is no hanging or footwall, and this is where they slide past each other, which is very similar to a transform boundary. So here you have a chance to look at the real-life fault and identify the footwall. The yellow line is the fault. The red lines are markings on the cliff wall where we can identify that we're once together. So those two red lines used to be next to each other, but because of the motion of the fault, they have switched. So take a moment to decide if A or B is the footwall, and B is the footwall. Here we want to look at the type of fault we have. Is it a normal, reverse, or slip strike fault? And you have a chance to look at this again. Same picture with the yellow line as the fault and the red lines as identifiers of where this fault used to be. In this case, it is a normal fault with the footwall on the right. We've got types of waves, including body waves and surface waves. We have P and S waves, or primary and secondary waves, in our body waves, and Love and Rayleigh waves in our surface waves. Both of these, Love and Rayleigh waves, were named after people who researched them, and we will talk about how we can use these waves and how they are identified. These waves are what cause the damage in earthquakes. Body waves originate and travel through the body of the Earth. We have primary waves, or P waves, and S waves, which are secondary waves. Primary waves obviously come first, and secondary waves are usually slower and behind the primary waves. They travel through the body of the Earth, and when they reach the Earth's crust, they form our surface waves. Surface waves are Love waves and Rayleigh waves. Love waves are horizontal shifting side to side, and Rayleigh waves are like the waves of the ocean. They're also called ground roll.